You know, we're always told that the biggest goals in life, getting in shape, building wealth, feeling confident, they all require this huge, complicated effort. But what if that's not true? What if all that conventional wisdom is actually making things way harder than they need to be?
So this is the kind of provocative idea we're digging into today. And listen, this isn't about some magical shortcut, not at all. It's about a total shift in how we look at things, suggesting that the stuff we struggle with the most, well, it might have some surprisingly simple, repeatable solutions. Right, so that's the big question, isn't it? What if we've just been overcomplicating everything? What if the real secret isn't some new, fancy strategy, but just getting back to the simple, boring fundamentals? Let's actually break down how this whole philosophy works.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to cover the easy actually mindset, why consistency beats optimization, the tricky nature of exponentials, how to avoid what we'll call life's slop, reprogramming your own brain, and finally, the most important part, taking action.
Okay, first things first, the easy actually mindset. Think of this as the foundation for everything else we're about to talk about. It's all about learning to cut through the noise and just focus on the few things that really move the needle.
So here's the core idea in a nutshell. Real success isn't about having a perfect 100-step color-coded plan. Nope. It's about finding the 2 or 3 things that truly matter for any goal and just doing them, over and over and over again. It's really a philosophy of radical simplification.
And that leads us perfectly into our first major principle, consistency over optimization. This one idea might be the single most powerful tool you have for any long-term goal, mainly because it's so incredibly simple.
Okay, this slide right here, this is a trap I think every single one of us has fallen into. It's the burnout cycle. You get this huge burst of motivation, hit the gym 6 days a week, go all in, but it's just not sustainable. You crash, you quit for a month, you lose all your progress, and then you repeat the whole miserable cycle. Now compare that to the slow burn. Just 2 workouts a week, but you never miss. Your progress is slower, sure, but it's always moving forward.
And the takeaway here is so clear. Over a few years, the person who works out twice a week without fail is going to be miles ahead of the person stuck in that burnout loop. And this isn't just about the gym, right? It's true for investing a little bit of money every month or practicing guitar for just 15 minutes a day. In the long run, consistency will always beat intensity.
And there's a really good reason this works. It's a classic principle called diminishing returns. Think about it like this. When you're at the gym, those first few sets give you most of the benefit. Adding more sets helps, yeah, but each one helps a little bit less. You get to a point where you're putting in double the effort for just a tiny fraction of extra gain. The real secret is finding that good enough point that you can actually stick to consistently.
All right, next up is a big one. It's probably the single biggest mental blind spot our brains have. We just can't wrap our heads around exponential growth. This works for good things like compound interest, but it also works for the bad things, like how credit card debt can explode, or how a diet can get exponentially harder over time.
I mean, this quote really says it all, doesn't it? Our brains are wired to think in straight lines. We expect progress to be nice and steady and predictable. But the most powerful forces in our lives, they don't work that way. They compound, and the results can be just absolutely mind-blowing.
I mean, just look at this. It's insane. A tiny single dollar of debt growing at just 2% a day. After a month, you're like, piff, it's less than $2, who cares? But after a year, it's over $1,000. And after 5 years, well, it's a number so big, it doesn't even make sense. That is the terrifying power of negative compounding. It's why tiny, consistent financial habits are so important. And it's also why a diet that feels easy in week 1 can feel totally impossible by week 10. The difficulty has been compounding against you.
So, okay, we know we need to be consistent, but we also have to watch out for all the traps out there that are specifically designed to knock us off course. The source material for this has a brilliant, kind of gross name for these things: slop.
And protein slop is the absolute perfect example. You know the one I'm talking about, that protein bar that tastes exactly like a candy bar. It's marketed as healthy, but it's really just designed to be incredibly addictive, so you eat it, you're still hungry, and you just want more. It promises a shortcut, but what it's really doing is sabotaging your actual goal of getting leaner.
But here's the really cool part. This idea of slop goes way beyond just food. Once you see it, you start to spot it everywhere. It's anything that promises a shortcut but doesn't give you any real value. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't actually get you any closer to your goal. So think about it. What's the slop in your career?
or in your finances? Let's make this super clear with a few examples. In finance, the slop is that trendy high-fee robotics ETF. The real value? A boring, low-cost index fund. In learning, the slop is just mindlessly scrolling through short videos. The real value is actually sitting down and engaging with some dense, structured info. You see the pattern here? The key is almost always choosing the boring, effective option over the exciting, distracting one.
Okay, so we've talked about all the external junk, the slop. But let's be honest, a lot of the time, the biggest roadblock, it isn't out there. It's right here, in our own heads. It's our own self-limiting beliefs. And man, is this a nasty cycle to get stuck in. It all starts with that little voice in your head. A negative belief like, I can't get fit, or I'm just not a confident person. So what happens? That belief leads to inaction. I mean, why would you even try if you're convinced you'll fail? Of course, that inaction guarantees you make zero progress, which then becomes the perfect proof to reinforce that original belief. And boom, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So how do you break out of it? You have to attack it head-on. First, you've got to pinpoint that specific belief. Then you challenge it. I mean, is there any real evidence that you can't do it? Or is it just a story you've been telling yourself? You visualize what success would look like, and then, and this is the absolute most critical part, you have to go out and do the very thing you thought was impossible. Even one tiny success gives your brain brand new evidence that can shatter that old belief for good.
Which brings us to the final, and honestly, the most crucial piece of this whole puzzle. All the analysis, all the planning, all the optimizing, it's useful stuff, but it is no substitute for actually doing the thing. You can't learn to tie a tie just by watching a video, and you can't build a good life from the sidelines.
So really, the ultimate takeaway here is this. Stop waiting. Stop waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect strategy, because that's just another form of hiding. Real progress only happens when you start doing. Think of it like a progress bar in a video game. Every little action, every workout, every dollar saved, every tough conversation, it just adds a little bit of XP. The goal isn't to fill the whole bar in one go, it's just to keep it moving forward, day by day.
And that leaves us with one last really important question. It's so easy to get buried under all the things you should do or what the optimal path is. But if you strip all that away and you just focus on taking one single step forward today, what's the one thing you actually want to do to move that progress bar? The answer to that question? Well, that's where you begin.